2. So, Danny boy, just stick around. Feel free to chime in. But me and Ben have some experiences we got to talk about. So, Ben, start us off.
So, we left off last week just before continuing in your own mind, being Roz's mind. Mm-hmm. And if you go a little further in that, you get to this blockade on what I think he described was the giant thorn tower.
Yes.
And it turned out to be like some weird nose smell sprout. Yeah, so you're in Rasputin's head, and you get to another blockade, and I kind of noticed how you keep going a little bit further in your own dream.
Yeah.
And then you get blocked, and that's where you have to get like a power from another person.
Yes, I forgot how structured this whole segment was. 'Cause I was remembering the game more as a segment of different levels. You go to each counselor, you do a thing. I forgot how much that element of your own personal memory played into this early part of the game.
It's much more linear so far than I imagined.
Yes, because I was picturing the game as more Mario 64-esque, and I think in a lot of ways the game is with its overworld Mario 64-esque, but it is a way more linear story.
You just can't choose,
You can't choose. I'm trying to remember.
I don't know if it'll open or not, but
I really can't remember right now. But the stages themselves are fantastic and very inspired, so that's been fun to play through at least.
So basically, you get to a spot where you need a new power, which is the levitation, and that leads you to Mila's dance party,
which is a fun little level.
The first main level we did, which is basically, it seems like some of the levels are just tutorials for the power,
yes,
and others are actual levels. This seemed more like a fun kind of crash course in this new levitation power.
Yes, it's not a full level. I'm fairly certain it's not the last we've seen of it, though.
Of her brain.
Yes, and again, I'm not operating on any knowledge of things I know from feature in the game. We're actually pretty much right up to the part that I finished playing the game anyway, so I really don't know anything, but I have a feeling just based off of... Have you noticed that whenever you get one of the saves and you see their little memories, if you go into your journal afterwards, there's like multiple spots? There's
okay. Yeah, you could kind of...
There's like tiers. So that implies you go back into everyone's brain at some point, basically.
Yeah, it's cool when you can kind of pick out clues from the menus and whatnot, and how your collection will go. Her level is, of course, they're all themed towards the character, and another one of them. You're in this like big disco party, and it turns into almost. It felt a bit like Mario Kart once you get the rolling ball part of it, and you go through that. Did you win the race your first try?
No, I played through it a couple times.
Okay, so you had to win the race.
No, you don't have to, but I just went back to and
you just did it for fun. Because I won it the first try, and I was wondering if you actually had to beat it.
I don't think you do. I redid it just for the hell of it because I was anal retentive. I did it before I could even get any message about whether or not I had to redo it. I literally just hit start and like reloaded the section. So we should reload it and check. I have a feeling that you don't have to though. I distinctly remember that, but I could be wrong. So I'm unsure, more or less. I could see it going either way based on the game's design. I could see it not being something you have to do, but I also maybe could, you know?
So, yeah, you get the new power comes with like a super bouncy jump, and also gives you a kind of floaty, like, thing. What would you call it? You can float downward.
It's like
a parachute.
Orb. It's like a mental orb, right? Or they have a name for it in the game.
I'm trying to describe it though.
It's like a glider.
Yeah, it's like a glider. It's almost like a paraglider.
You mean like a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild paraglider?
I swear I'm getting some weird like. There's a lot of little similarities that like weirdly like.
Interesting.
Even just outside that level in the pier, you can climb the trees and jump off and then use the gliding downward, and it's just that's like an exact moment from Zelda. But, and so, some of the design, like the little creatures and birds all around that you can...
Yes. And regardless of whether or not we remember the name, when you get every little thing in the game, it actually has like a very Metroidvania-esque feeling in that hub world, because there's a lot of things, as I'm sure you've realized, you can now access because you have that double jump ability, because you have that gliding ability. The world does open up the more and more that you do these things.
Yeah.
And even if it's just the open world elements and not quite the individual levels, there's so many cool collectibles in that camp. I love that part of the game.
So you get the new power, and then the game tells you to head back to the Sasha's lab, which where you go back into your own mind again.
I want, if I may, I just want to make one correction here. On my little post that I put on Twitter last week, guys, I just want to say I'm very sorry. I put his name as Sasha9, like the number 9, when it's very clearly Sasha 9, like no in German. So,
Yeah.
which is Sasha no. That's a pretty nice little joke in and of itself. So, I apologize to Tim Schafer, Eric Wolpaul directly. I let you down.
So you go to Sasha 9's lab, and yeah, you go back into your own brain and continue along the path, which I always like when the Metroidvania blockade, where you go back to the area and the actual barrier is like a super simple thing. Like you just had to glide upward on one stream of air.
And there's something really nice about that, where even in the game and its writing, like it feels like a clever little thing as opposed to just like a very arbitrary boundary. Or maybe it's highlighting the fact that it is like an arbitrary boundary, but it feels clever.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then you end up in the room with your dude, Dogen. And then you kind of learn of the plot of the evil plot of the game, where is that the guy, the main evil guy who like extracted his brain? Is he gonna actually be the main villain?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's going in that direction. I'm honestly trying to remember, to be honest.
That was a great scene though, the brain extraction.
Oh yes.
He just empties his entire consciousness into the garbage, and then each time it happens, it's like they're probably making a commentary on this, but they're just like TV, and like all they want to do is just be couch potatoes, and so play games and don't watch TV all day. But
I wonder if it's more like a poking thing on the fact that every kid who's playing this game's parents is probably like, you'll fry your brain. I wonder if that's supposed to be more of a knowing joke for kids and their parents. About like the dangers, quote unquote, of maybe that's just me coming from an environment where my parents were very on me about that as a young kid. But at least that's what I think.
And then you go into this weird, you go through the garbage hatch where his brain went into, and it was this weird conceptual, like, blueprint tank battle. Like, I didn't quite get what they were going for with, like, the metaphors on that one, but it was probably my favorite boss fight so far.
You know what? I think that part is less of a metaphysical thing and more of just an homage to the old school. Remember, like, the old school low poly, like, tank simulator games that they used to do?
Yeah, it did. It gave me twinges of like those paper tank games, like like where you'd flick pencils and stuff and have a war battle.
Yeah, there was an old Microsoft like tank simulator game too. It was very low poly. I think Doom, actually, the Doom guys did like a tank sim game too. There was like a lot of that stuff on like early PC games, and Tim Schafer's of that old school 90s PC world, even though he was doing more adventure games. So it feels more like he's referencing like his contemporaries, like that paper game, or even just like something you as a kid would make on like the lunch table.
Yeah, I think also just the blueprint aesthetic reminded me of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't have much trouble with that boss battle. It was probably the least frustrating to me so far.
Yes.
And after that is really, but the next plot point is what was it called? The monster? What was its name?
Well, there's a part in between, and then you go down under the lake because your girlfriend gets sucked in.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm alluding to. Is it eating your girlfriend?
Yes, it eats your girlfriend, and the lake monster, which is
I'm just trying to remember what they called it. It was like, because then lungfish, right?
Lungfish.
Then you go to Lungfishopolis.
Yes. Oh, you Lungfishopolis.
And so yeah, you got to save your girl, and you basically. You go under the lake, right?
Yes, you go under the lake.
And that was just like a weird, like, it was like a boss level.
Yes.
Where you're going along platforming in this weird bubble. How did you do on that part?
I did okay. So this was like the very last section I did during that initial PC playthrough. So again, one of the things I've been bringing up is that when I played on my old PC, I had a lot of slowdown issues, a lot of frame drops, so I thought at least things would go better. Something that I didn't really bring up last week that's really starting to bother me now is the fact that the version I'm playing on my PlayStation 4 is a port of the PlayStation 2 version of the game. So Ben, I don't know if you would know this because of the game's history, but the game was originally, we talked about this a bit, the game was originally designed as an Xbox game, which means it took advantage of the Xbox hardware, which means that it didn't run that well on PlayStation 2.
It seemed like it was designed for PC though. Like all the PC prompts are glued to the game too.
Oh yeah, well I think it's just Xbox to PC was like a better, I don't know why that thing with the prompts is the case, but the game is known to run a lot better on Xbox and PC than it did on PlayStation, and unfortunately in this section that was to my detriment. The slowdown wasn't as bad as it was when I was playing on my old PC back in 2010, and having a controller made it run a lot smoother, but that is a frustrating segment. You're being chased by the monster for a bit of it too, so it's kind of, I mean, like, it's got like that classic, you know, like, it almost felt like a Crash Bandicoot level, actually.
Oh yeah, true. I was gonna say it kind of felt like a Bowser level, but Crash is more on point, I think.
Something about like the camera movements, like I remember back in the day and even now, I think a lot of Crash in that segment, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was pulling from Crash as much as Mario 64. Those were like, I mean, it seems like he's pulling from all the great platforming games with this game. It was also the first game Double Fine did as a studio. This is something we were talking about too, is that in this section too, it's kind of clear how some of the mechanics are a little unrefined. I know you were having some trouble with this section too.
Yeah, well, more like in the actual boss fight after the platforming part.
Yeah.
But the thing was that I died a few times and had to do the entire platform part over again.
That really annoyed me too.
Before getting back to the battle.
I feel like... I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, please, you go.
Because, like, well, you know how you get to the third phase and his, like, dangler, you have to trap his dangler? I couldn't figure out, like, the clamshells. I kept trying to time hitting them to trap him, but you just had to pretty much he would trap himself and you stand there. Yeah,
you have to, it's annoying because you think there's something you have to do, or, like, you have to use, like, a power. I remember that messed me up a lot, too, when I was first, both times I played the boss battle, that messed me up, so I definitely feel you on that. It makes me feel good that you struggle with that too, because I was wondering at the time and even now if that was just me being a little impaired with platforming games. I mean, I played Mario with you. You know that it's maybe not my best genre, so I love this game and I love the story of this game and the characters, and a lot of times I think the gameplay is fantastic. For instance, the next level we're going to play, Lungfishopolis. I only played a bit of it, but it is by far one of my best favorite sections in the entire game. It's literally the last thing I played was I only played about half of Lungfishopolis, but it was... Oh, it was so good. And I really can't wait for you to play it, because you're going to love it.
It looks good, because I saw the beginning of it. You go right after the boss battle, you enter the boss's brain, and it's just this pretty hilarious cutscene where every citizen is like a lungfish monster.
A little baby, and it's like a riff on Godzilla where you're the giant monster.
And it had like a funny like Swedish accent or something. It looks good though. I'm excited for this next level.
It's a great level, and even and just to get back on point, I mean, even if there's some elements of the platforming that don't hold up quite as well, and some of it too, I wonder, like with the getting brought back to the beginning, I wonder if that's more just the art, how old the game is, you know, like, because like I do feel like in platformers at the time that was a little bit more common.
Yeah. Because
checkpoint systems weren't quite as much of a thing. With save states and stuff, games didn't quite work that way, you know?
And we were saying also, it seems like the writing holds up more than the gameplay.
Yes.
And maybe also the writing is like a level above most writing, and the gameplay was kind of on par for when it came out.
I think that's exactly it, and I think that's one of the interesting things when you watch the evolution of Double Fine as a studio, because they're one of my favorites. They have... Since that game, I think the height of their time was actually probably 2009 through 2011, 12, which is they did Brutal Legend, which is a great game, and then they did a bunch of small games in between. So that I think was like the very height of the studio. I feel like in a lot of ways Psychonauts was them learning the ropes, and even now, I mean, they went back to the adventure game. Like, they've become a lot more experimental in their genre and the type of game they're making. I think there's a lot they've learned since doing Psychonauts, even though Psychonauts is such a classic game for its writing and for the time. Again, some of the platforming segments hold up very well. It's not like the entire game is that way. So, and hey, I'm just very enthralled, especially now that we're getting to a point that we're past what I've seen. I really just want to keep going and keep playing this game and seeing everything it has.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm enjoying it. There's a bee.
That bee didn't die. Unlike all the bees of the film that happening.
I'm telling you, that movie's about bees dying.
It's not
That's
what
the
that is.
happening.
That is
All
not.
the bees die.
That is not what the happening is about. Maybe bees dying it, Ben, but I